Boo. That's our intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to podcast. It's been a minute, boys. Podcast number 8. We got a little busy with life in New Year's and business and all that. And we were like, hey, we're going to be better than average. Podcast number 8. And we're going to talk about youth training, sport-specific training, and kind of our experience and thoughts and all that, because I think we have a lot of experience in training young athletes, training young individuals. And you may ask, Tyler, who is this podcast today for? And I think all three of us would agree it's for parents. We want y'all to really listen to this. Kids, we want y'all to listen to this, whether you play a sport at a high level or not, whether you just like to work out. And also trainers, maybe you've been in the game for a little bit and you do have some young athletes. Maybe you're getting into training with some young athletes. And hopefully y'all can take something out of this and get something out today. So we got some pretty good opinions and thoughts on this. We kind of maybe go back in a little bit. I feel like this is kind of a hot topic a little bit with trainers. I think when you get into youth, you can maybe get some gurus out there that maybe know what they're talking about. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. So yeah, let's dive into it a little bit, guys. And welcome, Cody. Welcome, Joseph, boys. I guess let's start with this. What experience with some athletes that you've had, some youth that you have, maybe some little anecdotal stories that you've had over the years of training young athletes. Joseph, kind of what's your experience with training some athletes and where you come from there?
Yeah. So I've probably trained 20 plus youth athletes. And when I say youth, I would say 15 and under. That would be my age range. So probably 20 plus, all different sports, all different goals. Some were in shape, some were out of shape, some were overweight, some were super strong and kind of those 1%ers. And before I would train any youth athlete, I would ask them like their likes and dislikes. Do you want to be here? Do you like exercising? Do you like the sport? So this is more for our parents, try not to impose your goals and wishes onto your kid. Maybe it was your dream to play a sport, or maybe you did play that sport and you want your kids to follow in your footsteps. Make sure that your kid wants to do it. And sometimes even if you ask your kid the question, they're just going to say yes because they don't want to disappoint you. So for my coaches and trainers, make sure you ask the question again. And I tell you that story because, and he's still in the sport today, but he's almost a professional golfer at this point at the age of 17, I think he is now. A couple of years ago, I got him when he was 13, 14, and he was winning championships all over the world as a 13, 14-year-old. He was flying to different states, different cities, and he was golfing and, came from a really wealthy background. Dad loved to golf, grandparents loved to golf, and first session I had with him after doing, paperwork and talking to the parents was, do you like golfing? Like, isn't that crazy, right? Like he's been playing it his whole life. It surrounds him. His whole family does it. And he hesitated, And when he answered, he said, yes, I like it, but I don't think I would like it as much if my family was not involved. Right. And so it was a great answer. It was a pretty mature answer for a 13, 14-year-old. And so I say that because parents, if you're not involved and you're just preaching, you need to play football, you need to play baseball, you need to play this, you need to play that, and you're not involved or you're not supportive of it, you're just kind of barking orders. Maybe the child or the youth athlete doesn't want to be a part of it. And so mindset is huge. And before this, we were prepping for this. It's just, let the kid be a kid. And sometimes we hyper focus on a sport or an activity or training or health in general. And the kid doesn't get to be a kid. So I want to start there and kind of, Cody, take your thoughts away on that, man.
Those are big shoes to fill following Joseph. Oh man. I'd actually say I'm kind of almost the opposite of Joseph in the regard that I probably have less experience with youth athletes. I would also define them differently. How I would look at a youth athlete is really almost anybody that's probably 18 and under, or like not collegiate level. But with that said, like I specialize in general population. So youth athletes are not my bread and butter. And so I don't necessarily target youth athletes. I've definitely trained youth athletes less than 20 though: volleyball, baseball, cross country, football, lacrosse, a couple other sports. And man, Joseph, I agree with everything that you said. There are some kids that love being there. And like, this is the thing that excites them the most. And then there are other kids where you can ask them the question, hey, do you like XYZ? Do you want to be here? And some of those kids are just like, and then you can tell that this is not their jam, right? But Joseph, I think you just nailed it, man. I mean, for parents, like, support your kids instead of like try to force them into a path or a journey that might not necessarily be for them. Save you a lot of heartache, save you, the parents, a lot of money and time, save the kids a lot of heartache and time and bandwidth and whatnot. And then we'll probably talk about it later, but ultimately when you're kind of defining like the youth spectrum, getting really sports specific super early, probably not the greatest thing to do for the longevity or the potential of that child's or that youth athlete's career. So think if you start specializing, and I actually don't know what the threshold is, how the research defines youth athlete or early specialization. I'm guessing it's what, under 12-ish, somewhere around there, maybe under 11 to 13. But it looks like if they specialize too early, then their potential, their career, their development is stunted to a degree compared to youth athletes who get to play a lot of different sports and develop a lot of different qualities, work on different teams with different coaches. They just turn into just well-rounded athletes with a wider skill set and a bigger toolbox to then take to a more specialized sport or position. So I think that would be my initial and broad thoughts. Tyler, hit us with it. What's your experience with youth athletes? How do you define youth athletes?
Yeah, I've had a handful come through when I first started training, because people really kind of got to know me that I had just got done playing college soccer. I got reached out to a lot to train kids for soccer. And it was really interesting. And I had coached a couple teams before, like in college, just for fun. But then on the training, like coaching a team, teaching skills and training someone in strength and conditioning are three totally different things. And that's what I had to learn very quickly out of the gate as a young strength and conditioning coach in my early 20s was, what if I get a soccer player and he is a defender? Well, I was a forward. I can teach you how to be a forward all day long. I wasn't very good at maybe teaching you how to be a defender. And we're talking skill set right here. So I learned a lot very quickly of the difference in the three. And I think what a lot of trainers do, and I wanted to maybe caveat into this later, but I'll kind of speak onto it right now, is I'll get kids currently that want to train for soccer. And I let the parents know I am their strength and conditioning coach and they have a skills coach. We won't even be getting a ball out when they're working with me. Like, there's no reason to. Like, I am here to make them stronger, balance better, and faster. And even though I can teach them all the skills under the sun to shoot better, dribble better, pass better, all the things, I'm never going to touch it. That's their skills coach. And I think parents, that might be what you're looking for the strength and conditioning coach to do, but they should not be doing. I think a good strength and conditioning coach for baseball, for example, if he is a pitcher, isn't teaching him how to pitch faster. It's making his biomechanics work better and all of the things, right? And I think maybe we talked about this before we got on here, is if we knew what we knew now back when we played sports, we would probably train way differently, right? Totally differently. Even I think, knowing what I know now, I think the generalization of how soccer players work out and train is way wrong, to be honest with you. Because if you look at a 90-minute game, soccer players do run a long ways. Like, we think of soccer as a very cardiovascular sport, and it is. And sometimes those players are running anywhere from 2-3 miles, maybe up to 6 miles. But in a 90-minute period or a 90-minute game, it's not that much. So this steady state run, be in really good shape is not really how we should train. And that's just really going into sport specific. But I think what might help us, y'all, is breaking this down into just starting out to play sports. Usually the first age you can play sports is 4 years old. T-ball, entry-level soccer, basketball. So there's stages of all of this, right? This is my stages. You've got probably 4 to 9 years old, 9 to 10 to 13 years old. So 9 to 13, and then maybe 14. And then you have basically 15 to high school, end of high school. So there, I think one of the most important sports any kid can play at 4 years old, 5 years old, to me, is soccer. You're teaching a kid how to run and do things with their feet, right? And that's something they are not used to. So I think just from balance training, proprioception training, and learning how to play a sport, I think soccer and gymnastics at a very early stage in any boys and girls is what I would, when I have little ones, they'll be going into those, just because what do we need them to do? Balance and stop being little slinkies.
Yeah.
Right. What do y'all think about that?
I was like, he's gonna say soccer because he's a soccer player, obviously. But I love that you threw in gymnastics, which is not normal. Like, I don't think a lot of people think of gymnastics as like one of the most popular go-to things to do. I think it's popular like in toddlers. You see a lot of parents put toddlers in like gymnastics classes and stuff like that. Super beneficial, but then you fall out of it when they turn 3 or 4 or 5. And so that's huge. And I think when we're talking about balance and proprioception, I mean, imagine how many people stumble and fall and step off a curb wrong, and as an adult, right? Or like, you step wrong one way and you hurt your knee, you hurt your ankle. Well, if you would have had maybe a well-diverse background in soccer or even basketball, or things like just working on agility drills, and we can talk about that later, but how much better of a functioning adult could you have been? And you could have not hurt yourself stepping off the curb or, pivoting around the countertop, right? And I mean, we hear it all the time, like, man, I wasn't even doing anything and I hurt myself. It's probably because we don't have a well-rounded sports background, or just being an active background. And then talking to the coaches, realizing that some of the agility drills, start, stop, acceleration, it's multi-sport. And so just because you have a soccer player, agility ladders could be very beneficial. And it also could be very beneficial for a basketball player. And then acceleration, deceleration could be really great for base running in baseball, and start and stop when someone hikes the football and you're exploding off the line. And so as a strength and conditioning coach or a trainer, like, the drills you're doing are multi-sport. And I think sometimes we think, oh, I have a soccer player, so I have to train them differently, especially at a young age. That's not the case. One drill can be very multi-sport, or one goal. So acceleration, deceleration, change of direction, plyometrics, whatever the case may be, very multi-sport.
The big thing, and this is predominantly for coaches who train, well, frankly, anybody, but certainly for youth athletes, man, do a needs analysis on them. What does the kid need, right? Like, watch them move. If there's tape of them playing in their sport, watch it. Like, find out what qualities do they need for their sport, right? And I say that within the context of like a strength and conditioning need, right? Like, if they need more sport specific or position specific skill stuff, that's for their, like Tyler, like you said, that's for their skill coach, right? For us, it's like, do they need more linear acceleration? Do they just, Tyler, I'm thinking back, like when I played soccer, I was never really good. Played my entire life, never great, right? Very mediocre at best. But man, if I could go back and like have my like little Cody do something, I would have gotten into the gym and putting some body armor on, right? Because you can be as fast as you want, but if you keep getting pushed off the ball, or if you're going for a 50-50 ball and you're always losing it because like the other dude is just stronger and more powerful than you, like, I needed more body armor. I needed more lean body mass. I needed a little bit more. Let me back up. I needed a lot more strength. I still do. But do a needs analysis. And then, what sits on top of, and also like beneath that, is it's got to be fun. And then this applies to the training that you do. It applies to their sport too. I agree. Like, I think soccer and gymnastics, amazing, but ultimately, like, we can all agree that those are probably pretty fun things, but if the kid doesn't think that it's fun, like, man, it just ain't gonna be sticky. And so that would be one of my biggest things, certainly for coaches, is do a needs analysis, find out what they need, what's relevant to them, and then go develop those qualities. Generally, what it'll probably be for most younger kids is they need more lean body mass, and they need probably a bit more strength, and then ultimately power would sit up on top of that. Spend your time developing those qualities. And the cool thing about that is that the training to do that, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You don't have to get super fancy, but the results from it are so cool. And something we haven't really even talked about, well, Joseph, you touched on it, injuries, resistance training, like getting strong, adding lean body mass, as long as we're smart about it and like we're accessing like relevant positions and we're building capacity there, resistance training might be one of the best ways to, and I have to be careful with my words here, reduce the likelihood of injury, or mitigate the magnitude of injury. We're always going to get injured. Like
and accelerate recovery.
Say that again.
Accelerate recovery post injury.
For sure. We're always going to get injured, whether you're not a youth athlete or you're just a gen pop, whatever. We're going to get injured, right? That's just almost going to happen. But if we can reduce the likelihood and we can reduce the magnitude, and Joseph, like you said, accelerate the recovery and the return to sport. Oh, awesome. And that's like some of the coolest things that come from strength and conditioning or resistance training. It's just awesome. It's often overlooked too.
I'm gonna let Tyler keep writing for a second. Keep writing, Tyler.
No, I have like I love this topic. I just love talking about training. So I'm having like ideas flash across my eyes, and I'm just making sure I don't lose them. Did y'all hear? I made a post about this a while back, and I'm going to butcher it. This statistic. I need to find it, but I believe like 2 Super Bowls ago that 80% of the athletes on the field in the Super Bowl, 80% of them were dual sport athletes in high school. And then like 50, 60 something percent of them were like triple sport athletes, meaning like baseball, football, baseball, track, whatever it was. But I thought that was really cool. And that gets into like, we wanted to talk about like sport specificity with this. And I think one of the sports that's gotten absolutely out of control with sport specificity is baseball. And then right behind that is soccer. If you look at the landscape of youth baseball and travel baseball right now, it is wild, y'all. Like it is all year, every year, wearing kids out for really no reason. When I was growing up, I actually felt this pressure a little bit. I quit soccer when I was at like 13. I quit. I was like, because it was school select for forever. And I was like, I am burnout. I want to go play baseball. So I always played baseball and I always played soccer. And then I actually quit soccer for a year and I went and played baseball. And then I just honestly just missed my friends from soccer. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back and play soccer. I took a year off. I'm going to go play with them. And that was a lot of fun. But when you look at that statistic of all those athletes in the Super Bowl being multi-sport athletes, I think I've had this conversation, made a blog post about it one day of how, and you can look at different sports, how they feed into other ones. And I was saying like, okay, I played baseball and soccer. I feel like my footwork in baseball, because I was a shortstop and a pitcher, but my footwork at shortstop was better because I played soccer. And then maybe my focus was better at soccer because of the focus you have to have in baseball, right? And then if you're a basketball player, I mean, hell, you're jumping all practice long. So the load you're carrying on your knees and your ankles and moving laterally, being on a hard surface, being able to absorb force and momentum is great for every single sport. So I would encourage every single, and maybe we'll throw this number out here in a second. Like, I think every kid should play every single sport they possibly can until they get to high school and then focus. Like, just play everything. If you suck at basketball, I don't care. You need to run up and down the court and you need to jump and land because it's just going to translate to everywhere, right? So that's kind of a couple things that I wrote down on is play all the sports as long as you possibly can. And then I chose soccer in high school, honestly, because baseball and soccer were at the same time. I had to choose. I would have loved to have played both at the same time, but I chose soccer. Wish I could have played baseball. The season just didn't allow that. But had many guys that came over on my high school team, and we were really good in high school, that played high school football. Shout out Ben Kinder, Thomas Field, some other guys that were really, really, really good. Garfield, really, really good at football. Luther, and came over and played soccer. And when they came over, we're like, man, and they would be bigger. They would be bigger and they would not be pushed off the ball. We're like, all right, we got our big boys back. Let's go play. So that's my little aside to that, y'all, on just the sport, not being so sport specific and playing everything.
Yeah. 2 things. I have 2 pretty high up there athletes. So Tyler's throwing shout outs. So I'll throw shout outs. James Franklin went to Canada, played in the Canada Football League after college at Mizzou, broke a bunch of records at Mizzou. So look him up. And then Darrell Williams went to Oklahoma State, and then he played for the Carolina Panthers. And so now both of them grew up together since middle school, since about, I think, 6th grade. Darrell and I have been together, I think, since 5th grade or maybe even 3rd grade. And then James got there at like 5th or 6th grade. played football every year, track every year, basketball every year until like their junior year of high school. And then they were like straight football, and then they played professional football as well in college football. So definitely multi-sport for the biggest portion of their youth career. And then going back to what Cody said, when I have this golfer who is, again, championship golfer, winning money at 13, 14 years old, which is wild to me. The first thing I did for a needs analysis was one, and I still have it on my phone. I recorded his golf swing, about 20 golf swings. I said, hey man, we're going to go to the backyard, go grab your favorite club. And I'm just going to record your golf swings and I'll look at it later. I'm not going to look at it right now. Then I tested his flexibility, and his lateral bends from left to right were astronomically different. He was so he could like go past his knee on his left side and couldn't even touch his hip bone on his right. It was wild. It was super wild. So as a coach, I now have to tailor his training to his balance and his range of motion and the differences there. And then also prioritize flexibility and mobility, which is huge. I think a lot of times, even coaches today, we get so caught up in build muscle, build muscle, build muscle, build muscle. Well, if you can't bend down to pick up or tie your shoe, or you can't, right? Like, there's a lot of analogies I was going to say, but I'll stay appropriate. If you can't bend down to tie your shoe, well, that's probably not very helpful. And so as a strength coach, remember to throw in, even if it's like homework for the athlete, hey, here's some stretches, here's some mobility work, YouTube mobility, 15-minute mobility, and you can get free mobility classes, right? Which is huge when we talk about the longevity of your career as an athlete.
I'm going to riff on that. And Tyler, you got me taking notes over here. This is a fun chat. My goodness. And this one, because Joseph, you bring up a good point. And again, this goes back to episode 1 of the FitChat context, right? Depending on the sport, Joseph said rings entirely true, right? If they can't lace up their cleats without like the help of a buddy, you might need to work on something. Maybe, right? Sometimes though, and I'm going to pepper some of these things in, sometimes though, some of that stiffness might actually be good. And then on the flip side, my goodness, and this is for coaches, do not stretch and mobilize absolutely everybody. This goes back to the needs analysis. If you have an athlete that's hypermobile, and my goodness, you have somebody that loves swimming and they're like, I want to be a track star, film them run. My gosh, don't go stretch your swimmers a whole bunch, because they're probably already really bendy and they don't need more mobility work, right? And so if this applies for even general population people, because we'll get hypermobile people and like the last thing we want to do is go stretch, even though they probably love it because they're good at it and it feels awesome. They need more strength. They need more stability. They need more like positional awareness, like where their body's going. But this is going to be fun for parents. Any of y'all listening to this, my goodness. I knew that this was super popular for probably all of us growing up, because we're all same generation. It's probably different now. Honestly, this is a good part of social media, but thanks to social media, don't lift weights when you're young, and we can define young at some point. Don't lift weights when you're young, because my gosh, you might get hurt or it'll stunt your growth. Now,
stunt your growth. Yeah, go please.
Your growth.
Yeah.
Not good for your growth plates. Think about this for a second. You send in your youth athlete, and let's just say they're 10 years old. Cool. And they're working with somebody who's qualified. And let's just say that this youth athlete weighs, I don't know, 100 pounds, 10, 11 years old, whatever, 80 pounds, whatever. And let's just say they're goblet squatting like 35 to 40 pounds, or deadlifting their body weight, 100 pounds. If they're doing it correctly, and I would hope that they would, because they're with, again, a qualified professional, the amount of force that's going through their body, or that their body is producing, pales in comparison to the amount of force, ground reaction force, that they're getting into when they're jumping off of the playground, or they're climbing up trees and jumping off of limbs, or running around the playground. Like, I'm not saying that's dangerous, but my goodness, the amount of force that's going through their body doing these seemingly benign things that we're just like, oh yeah, the kid's playing, far higher than them goblet squatting 35, 40 pounds or deadlifting 100 pounds, right? So that might be something that which like when you really think about like the physics of it, it's like, that makes no logical sense that goblet squatting a 35-pound dumbbell is going to stunt their growth or injure them, but they jump off the top of the playground, land on their face and run it off, and they're giggling. Like, man, we might need to set that aside.
100%. I think one thing that a lot of trainers of young athletes don't look at, and parents don't look at it, is you cannot fight biology. What I mean by this, look at every kid that was really, really good at baseball in 7th or 8th grade, really, really good at football, 7th, 8th grade, freshman year. What do they all have in common? They had all hit puberty. And so when I'm looking at a young athlete and I get him, and it's let's just call him a male athlete, comes to me, he's 14 years old, 15 years old, and we're trying to get him stronger for basketball, football. I immediately look at him, do a little, assessment, and then I ask, and then in conversations with his parents, I'll ask him, like, do you think he's hit puberty or not? Because we can all agree. If I'm sitting here with a trap bar, deadlift bar, benching with a kid that's 14, 15 years old, and he's 2 years away from puberty, I am literally playing a no-win game. He's just not going to get that much stronger. Can we improve imbalances? Yes. Can we make him a little bit stronger? Yes. Can we make him more coordinated? Yes. Is he going to get stronger, as strong as a kid his age that is in the middle of puberty? Absolutely no way, no how. And so I will tailor my training to them, knowing that either A, we're not in puberty, we're not even sniffing it, okay? Or we're in puberty. I have a plan in a year this kid's going to hit puberty. And I really have seen just crazy. If you set them up for success at 13, 14, 15, and they haven't hit puberty yet, when they hit it, it is like a rocket ship of strength, because of they can balance a bench bar, they can balance a deadlift, they can balance a squat. So having that conversation and setting expectations with that parent, they're like, well, Johnny down the street's benching 225 at 16. I'm like, Johnny also has a mustache and he's got hair under his arm. Your kid doesn't have a hair on his leg. He's a dolphin. He has nothing. So we've got to set expectations of this, right? And I think
a dolphin.
Oh, he's a dolphin. He's a seal. I think about, like, y'all. I was an extremely late bloomer. I don't think I hit puberty until I was like 20. Okay. And so, like, knowing and understanding this, I could not get stronger, as strong as my buddy that lived down the streets that had a beard at 17, And so it's something that I don't think gets talked about a lot in training young athletes, is where are they at biologically? We know girls come into that somewhere around 12 to 14, 15, lot younger than little boys do. And boys, it's anywhere from 13 to, hell, like me, literally 17 years old. Where do they fall? Are you setting expectations, and are you training them along that biological track that they're on? Because it has everything to do with their training and if they're going to be any good at a sport or not. I'll be dead honest, 100% dead honest. But that's that with that.
Yeah, it's a good spot, because setting expectations with the parents. So parents, maybe if the coach doesn't set expectations, ask questions. What can we expect to accomplish? How can we measure this kid's progress? Essentially, because you want to get your money's worth, number one. And then having that discussion with the kid as well. Maybe not be so brittle as, you haven't hit puberty yet, so this is just, you're just going to suck for the next year. More of along the lines of, hey, we're going to focus on this because of where you're at in life right now. We're going to focus on more of like proprioception and power and all these things, but we're not going to necessarily pack on a bunch of muscle. You're not going to see you gaining a bunch of strength here and there. We're going to make some, but shifting that focus to the athlete as well, to let them see that they're not wasting their time either, right? And then maybe as you get to know the athlete throughout your relationship, you say, hey, once you hit puberty and once you start aging some more, you're going to notice the strength come. But if we can establish the technique and the principles of these lifts right now, when those hormones do change, it's going to just tenfold your results then, rather than, well, let's not do anything right now. Let's just wait until puberty happens and then we'll accomplish it. No, start now, start early, start often. But setting those expectations from a price point, again, what am I getting for my money as a parent? And then for the athlete as well, what can I expect to accomplish with my coach? Because a lot of times it's, people don't ask those questions. I trained a basketball player, fantastic basketball player, a solid 4 inches taller than everyone in his class. And I trained him like an adult. I was like, man, I know you're only like 15 right now, but you're 6'3". So I'm going to treat you like an adult. right? And it was like, I mean, we were doing the tallest box jump we could do. We were maxing out, probably once a month. And he was just crushing all things fitness related. Okay. Like little Johnny at 5'4" with no mustache, probably not gonna happen.
And I would encourage parents that their kids going into, and I've dealt a lot with this the past 3 or 4 years, is they know their kid is about to get into middle school, get into high school. Let's say he plays football, and they know that what's coming down the line. What kind of bothers me is there's a lot of high school football coaches that have zero background in strength and conditioning, zero background in training, and they're trying to teach a hang clean and a power clean and these things that are difficult, that require a lot of coordination. I would encourage parents, get a strength and conditioning coach, a trainer for your kid that knows how to do these things, that knows how to bench well, squat well, deadlift well, hang clean, power clean, all of those, and just get form down. Because I've had a lot of kids come to me that have gotten hurt in the high school weight room because the coach gives 15 people a bar, loads plates on, demos a power clean, and is like, okay, class, go. And then they're like, I mean, we're talking messed up shoulders, messed up backs at 14, 15, 16 years old. And
I'll
that's
top
sad.
You. I will top you. Hold on. I got a personal story, Cody. Golly.
I love story time.
No, there was freshman summer strength and conditioning camp. Not going to mess it and say any names or anything like that. The coaches program required us to max out power cleans after the workout.
Nice.
We're an hour in. Not only did we max out power cleans, we were in a big like Olympic rack that can go from squat, incline, bench press, and it has notches, right? These big rigs. Not only that, we were going to face outward. So the rack was going to be behind us and we were going to be facing out, and everyone's facing each other because there's 2 rows. I go to power clean. Again, I was, 13, 14 years old, 110 pounds, power cleaning 135. I fall backwards into the rack, chopped off my pinky. 25 stitches later, I got my pinky back. Freshman year high school. So
I got my pinky back. Oh my.
I got it off the ground and said, Coach, I think something's wrong. And went to the hospital. Dallas Children's actually was where I was at, and got my pinky sewn back on.
This is what I was going to tack on to what Tyler was saying. I do think we have to acknowledge that like different schools have different resources, budgets, access to different coaches and whatnot. And so like, you put the football team in the weight room, like there might be one S&C coach or just the football coach in there with 50, 60 kids, and that's it, right? And it's because of logistical constraints that are kind of maybe outside of that coach's control. And so, is it up to the coach to ultimately, create a mature environment and the right community and set the right expectations around that? I would say, yeah, absolutely. But it might just kind of fall back on like the school has one coach. There's 60 kids that have to go through this period, like, the A block or whatever. And, you're doing the best that you can. So that might be the reality of certain schools or for certain coaches. If you're not excited about that as a parent, or you're not excited about that as an attendee, then yeah, I mean, go put yourself in an environment that makes more sense based on your preferences and whatnot. So that could be like one coach and 10 kids, right? Like I'm not saying one-on-one coaching with an Olympic level S&C coach, but changing the ratio of coach to child or coach to athlete, whatever might make sense. Probably wouldn't be that terribly expensive either. Could be quite accessible for a lot of different people and athletes and their needs. One thing that kind of in that vein, injuries, stress and whatnot, this is just a cool tidbit. This one's for everyone. And I just love little cool sciencey tidbits. We always talk about like injury prevention, right? Or what I like to say, reducing the likelihood of injuries. As a coach and an athlete, and ultimately also as a parent, I think all 3 groups deserve to at least have some awareness around this. Stress, for the most part, for the body, and how that's relevant to what we're talking about is there's a pretty good chance that the likelihood of injury during periods of high stress, and what that stress can be a lot of different things. But since we're talking about youth athletes, it might be during finals week, it might be during or the week leading up to a big exam or something, a big game or whatnot. During those periods of higher stress, our likelihood of injury, and I say our because ultimately this applies to us adults as well, our likelihood of injury goes up. And there's a cool research paper on this, and then was at a clinic, the UT Athletic Performance Clinic,
And they touched on it too. Your training around those events during finals week or midterms, whatever it might be, should help accommodate for those external stressors. So if you're a parent and you know that your kid is you're moving across the country, be mindful of like overtraining or them just under recovering or being overstressed, because, you know, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. Like, just kind of catch it on the front end so that you don't have to like Joseph was maxing out on power cleans and maxing out his healthcare deductible. Nice. You know, like maybe just set things up a little bit
Oh
differently.
man.
Sorry, Dad.
So Joseph almost cut his pinky off. I almost bit my tongue off in college doing plyometrics.
No, my pinky was gone. My pinky was on the floor. Yeah, I was on the floor.
Like from what part? What knuckle?
No, like right here. I'll show you the scars. Yeah, like right here.
Oh
The
man.
unimportant part. You don't need it anyways.
You don't need that. It's like the least. It's like the least important finger as well.
Very true. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and so my background now for the last probably 5 years is deeply nutrition. But it's the same thing with the stress. It's like, hey, if trying to hit your calories, hit your macros is too much right now because of external factors, a great coach and parent should coach them to take a step back, you know, and not saying, oh, you need to take the next month off of training. No, it's not what we're saying, but decrease volume, decrease intensity, decrease frequency, like whatever the case may be, until you're ready to ramp it back up in whatever case that may be. We deal with it all the time because especially talking about youth athletes it used to be the tax test. Now it's like the STAR test, right? So you have like state testing that you have to worry about in Texas anyway. And then you have finals and you have midterms and all this stuff. And so as a coach, you should know the seasons and the school year better than anyone if you're prioritizing youth athletes, and maybe they don't even tell you, and maybe they don't even like, hey, like, how are you doing with your studies and how are you doing like with stress? And maybe like, no, I'm fine, like totally okay. You still need to scale back. And again, exhausting them during a workout and then expecting them to go study or perform well in the classroom is crazy. Or vice versa, they're studying all night long and they're taking all these exams and then they come to you and you expect 100% effort and then they hurt themselves. And so you have to be able to kind of go both ways and protect them in both areas. Because I don't know if you remember this, but we're called student athletes first. And so student comes first. So don't sacrifice their education because you want them to deadlift and max out today, you know?
I put that in the wrong order in college. I was an athlete student. Yeah. The importance was a little skewed there.
Yeah, I did that in the military. They said you're either going to be a strong soldier, meaning you're in trouble all the time, or you're going to be a smart soldier. And I was one of the strongest.
We touched on this before when we were talking before the podcast, but this goes to the parents. Your kid doesn't have to be an athlete just to work out or have a trainer or have an S&C coach. I have 5 kids that are between 15 and 17 right now that I train that do not even play a sport. They first came to me when they were 13, 14. They played a couple sports, but now these kids, like, they just come to me, mentor them a little bit as a big brother. But I have where I'm going with that is I have every ounce of confidence that when these kids graduate high school and they go to college, they will walk into a gym and know what to do and not have to learn based on looking around or whatever. They could walk into a gym right now and have a routine down and be confident in that. Like, maybe they're not the most athletic people in the world, but you better believe they can walk into a gym and rack some weights and do some rows and do some curls and do some presses and do some leg stuff. I think that part is largely missing in the youth nowadays. If kids aren't playing sports, what are they doing to be healthy? You know, most of the time now they're on Snapchat or video games. So I would encourage all parents to get your kid a trainer for a year just to learn. Maybe you're planting a seed of health and fitness in them for the future, because if they have never touched a weight until they go to college, now you're hoping they walk into a weight room by themselves and figure it out. So yeah, parents, grab your kids, get a couple kids together, 2, 3, 4 of them, and send them off to a trainer and have them do it together as a group. It'll be one of the most beneficial things they could ever do in their life.
I'm going to add to that, Tyler, because that's a really good point. Going back to the very beginning, when I train youth athletes, it's usually a result of I train their parents and their parents have a good experience. And they're like, cool. I want my child, my youth athlete to train with you. I'm like,
100%.
I'm like, cool. Like, you're a cool person. I love hanging out with you. Like, I'm sure your kid equally rocks. Right. And yes, get them. They don't have to
play a sport to exercise, lift weights, do healthful things. I think that's awesome to start young. Man, saves a lot of headache later in life when they've already kind of established some of those habits. But Tyler, what you mentioned, like get a trainer. Kids are on social media and whatnot. Social media is a double-edged sword. On one hand, like I feel like now more than ever, more kids are into exercising due to social media. There's good information out there. There's awful information out there. There is a vanity aesthetics component to fitness and whatnot, which can be great, but again, it can also be absolutely awful and super detrimental. There's some scary statistics around Facebook, Instagram impacts on young females. It's kind of troublesome. Anyways, I digress. I have a client. She's like, hey, I want you to train with my child. I'm going to be very vague with names and whatnot. So I'm training this person, super cool youth athlete, and mentions that they're experiencing some like issues with a certain movement. And I kind of like, I'm digging a little bit. I'm like, okay, well, you know, what's happening? What are you doing for your warm-ups? What are you doing for your workouts? What does your programming over time look like? And when they were filling in the warm-up portion of like what they did, they were doing like hundreds of reps of exercises and ultimately I was like, where did you learn to do that? Like, how did you come up with that? And it was social media, because some big account said, hey, do literally like 100 tibialis anterior raises beforehand and do like 50 sissy squats and whatnot. And I was like,
Wild.
Is that the whole workout? No, that's just the first 2 sets of warm-up activities. I was like, my goodness, let's shave some of that off. So just be like, social media can be great. It can be awful. It's possible to curate just a remarkable news feed of really like highly qualified and experienced professionals. It's also really easy to curate a news feed full of a bunch of bogus, unsubstantiated BS, for lack of a better word. I'm not saying you got to police your kids' social media, but a great segue into put them with a coach in person who can actually do that needs analysis and train the person that's actually in front of them, likely have way better outcomes.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things. One, the social media accounts that you probably should follow are the boring ones, not the ones that are like, oh my gosh, that was the coolest thing ever. And there's like this one exercise that's going to cure everything in my life. Don't follow those, follow the more boring ones. And that's probably the ones you should. And then secondly, bring parents for bringing on a coach, let your kid bring some of those social media excitement posts to the coach and have the coach kind of analyze it for them and say, you know, hey, I saw this cool exercise or this cool workout. Like, can I do it? Should I do it? Does it make sense for me? And like Cody said, like, hey, well, 100 tibialis anterior raises and 50 whatever. Like, could we scale it back, have better results, right? Exhausting yourself in the warm up is probably not very smart. And so, but could we warm up the muscles that needed to be warm up with the exercises that this workout program gave? Yes. Was the dosage a little wrong? Absolutely. Right. And so let your coach talk you through dosage, talk you through frequency and all that good stuff. So, and then kind of going back to Tyler of saying, when these kids walk into college and it's getting earlier and earlier, but college was normally the time where people started becoming really cognizant of their perception in the world and how people perceive them. And so that's probably where we like, oh my goodness, the freshman 15, I've got to start working out. And if it's your first time to step into the gym, well, 1, you're probably really intimidated. So maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, you don't even go. And then 2, if you do go, you don't know what to do. And then 3, if you do start doing something, you might hurt yourself, or you don't know how to progressive overload, or you don't know how to measure results, or whatever the case may be. And so getting your youth involved with a coach and a trainer and learning the moves and learning how to progress earlier rather than later is going to save them with their, you know, I want to look differently, or people are picking on me, or whatever the case may be. It will just establish much more confidence in their outward projection into the world. And again, I say it's coming earlier and earlier because of social media. So Cody tapped on that. And so now everyone is posting all these pictures and they want to look the best that they can look. And if they don't look that good, they're just going to put a filter on it and now they look great. And so, you know, how can we, and that's where a lot of these issues are coming from, because we live behind a filter, but in real life, we're still not confident. And even if you're not good looking or the best in shape person, weight training and being physically fit builds confidence. And I think all of us can agree on that.
100%, man. 100%. We're almost an hour in already, boys. Do we want Cody? Did you bring a lightning round today? Do you have anything? Or we maybe skipping it?
I do have one thing that I do want to ask. It would be fitting for a lightning round.
Okay.
Because if it's not a lightning round, we're going to spend probably the next hour talking about it.
Okay. Lovely.
So I have at least one question. Maybe what if we do like a round robin lightning round where Tyler, you say something, Joseph, you pose something, and then I'll drop my question, and I just cannot wait to hear y'all's answers to it. Because I know this has happened. I know that this has happened to y'all. So
what do you want from me? Do you want us to wrap this up, like bullet point this whole thing? Do you want us to what do you want from us right now, you think? Where do we go?
Oh, I'm gonna hit y'all with a lightning round question. We'll do a lightning round. And then Tyler, if you have one that you can ask me and Joseph. Joseph,
Okay.
if you have one, you can ask me and Tyler. We'll just round robin it.
Gotcha.
Are y'all ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, lightning round.
Okay. For the viewers, if this is your the viewers, the listeners, man,
all two of y'all, we appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Mom. Glad you're tuning in. Quick, rapid fire answers to questions. We are time capped at 30 seconds per person per answer to help keep us concise and succinct. So I will start us off. Joseph, I'm coming at you first, man. This is right up your alley.
He always comes to me because
he does.
Crazy answer.
I love it. So the question is, parents, this one's for you. Tune in. Coaches, listen also. Joseph, a parent comes to you and says, hey, my kid's a little chubby. He's 12 years old, 13, whatever. So it doesn't matter the age. They need to lose weight. What is your approach, broadly speaking? 3, 2, 1, go.
Go exercise. That's it. So real quick, because we got 20 seconds. People do come to me with that question all the time. And they want a nutritional answer. I need to help my kid eat better. And I say, you know what? I want you to sign up as my client, and I want you to lead by example of how to eat better. And then your kid will follow suit. And all you need to do is pull your kid away from their cell phone and the TV, and the rest will do its job.
Brilliant. I knew it. So good. Tyler, same question. Parent comes to you and they're like, hey, my kid is a little overweight, chub. I mean, parents, y'all need to be kind to your kids.
Yeah, we get these for real.
This is real. Like my kid's chubby, they're overweight, and they're like 12. It's like they're growing. It's fine.
Yeah. They want their kid on a meal plan at 12. I'm like, this kid wants Pop-Tarts and Twinkies. Like, all right, I'm ready.
And like the 12-year-old really gets control over the grocery cart at the grocery store, right?
Right.
Mom, dad looking at you. Okay, Tyler, parent comes to you. My kid needs to lose a little bit of weight. Can you help? 3, 2, 1, go for it.
Yeah, without piggybacking completely off of Joseph, I would say to expound it a little bit more, I would ask questions. Do they play a sport? What movement do they do? How much video games are they playing? Are they on their phone all day? Do they go out and play with their friends? And so from those answers of all those questions, I would then say, okay, they don't do this, let's do this. They don't do this, let's do that. I wouldn't even really talk about food a whole lot. I would just talk about more movement and less sitting behind a screen, most likely.
Damn, I like it. That's
Good
great.
old needs analysis. I've been harping on that all day today.
I like in a nutshell, I really like what y'all said. Get them moving more. Mom, dad, that applies to you too.
Yes.
That applies to us coaches sometimes. And then, man, Joseph, what you said, model the behavior that you want. Parents, you lead by example. Like your kids are sponges. Like they're looking at you. So you get to go work with Joseph or Tyler on nutrition for your own nutrition, and then it trickles down to your kids. It's awesome. Tyler, I'll run the stopwatch. Do you have a rapid fire?
Maybe. Joseph? Sorry, y'all. The tornado sirens are going off around here. We may have to hop off here in a few minutes, but this maybe isn't like I was thinking, no, this will be too long. I don't have one today. The one I'm thinking about it'll be entirely too long. It would almost turn into like story time. Do you have anyone, Joseph?
I'll hit Cody with it first because he'll give the smartest answer, I think.
Hey.
And we're gonna bring it back to youth fitness. And so Cody, parent brings child to you for training and says money's not an option or money's not an issue. How frequently do you want to see my kid?
That's a great one.
I would try to have a separate conversation with the parent and the kid, and I would ask the kid, like, hey, how often do you want to come in here? How often would be fun for you? And then for the parent, I would say, how often is it realistic that you can make it here to drop the kid off? Unless, of course, the kid is of driving age, in which case the ball's mostly in their court and it's really their decision.
Is there too much? Do you think that there could be too much, or do you think that you're a good enough coach to periodize it in a way that overtraining would never be a thing?
That's a good question. That's a good follow-up question. I mean, without going too into depth, my first session with people, like, I'm asking a metric ton of questions. And so it's totally possible to, at least at the beginning, kind of, not that this is ever the goal, but like, I've never written a perfect program. And so is it possible to, from a 12 or a 13 or 14-year-old not get the most accurate information? For sure. After that relationship evolves and we get better communication, you can dial in the program. Absolutely. I don't know. I think the underlying foundation of frequency for a youth athlete would be enjoyability and whatever's realistic for their schedule, because they got friends, they have school, but it's probably going to be in the 3 to 6 range. I don't want to see somebody 7 times a week, 3 to 4 is probably great. But what about you, Joseph? Money's no option. Train my child 18 hours a day. 3, 2, 1, Joseph. Questions coming back at you. Go.
Yeah. Where's your credit card at? For sure. No, I think yes. I think especially when we're talking about youth athletes, there's so much that we can work on that doesn't negatively impact what we worked on yesterday or something else. Like, again, we could literally do balance all day long and that wouldn't impact their strength tomorrow. And the strength might not impact the power the following day, and then upper body, then lower body, and then acceleration, like we could do something every day to target a different system or a different muscle group, and we would be fine.
Something we didn't even mention. Parents, let your kids freaking sleep. Kids, sleep. You want to be good at a sport, outsleep the competition. Joseph, of those 18 hours that we're training this kid every single day, we could do some sleep hygiene stuff, and that takes darn near no recovery. Tyler, question coming at you. I'm going to repeat Joseph's. Parent says, hey, here's my Amex Black Card. It's got no limit. My kid wants to train. How do you approach that? 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, it'd come down to, well, one, per session, astronomically expensive, right? $1,000 a session. I'm kidding. It'd be like, I have a lot of questions, like, how old are they? Are they in season? Are they in school? Are they practicing? Do they play select? What does their practice schedule look like? Where do I fit in there? All of the things, right? Because if they're going to practice 2 hours a day, they're coming to see me for an hour, 5, that's a lot, right? So I think I could do a lot with a person. I'm 2 seconds over, 3 to 4 days a week. I think optimally 4.
Dude, you were 7 seconds over. Get a life.
Learn to count.
I was borrowing your seconds a while ago when you just said workout.
Oh.
So I had an extra 29.
Very cool.
Tyler, last chance. You sure you don't have a lightning round question for us?
Oh man, golly, I'm hoping I survive this storm that's coming on. This may be our last podcast.
Cody and I will keep it alive without you.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot. Do we want it to relate to youth sports training? Yes, obviously, since that's what we're doing, right? Maybe this is just a question, not even a sciencey thought. What is your favorite, if you got a kid in that plays a sport, what would be your favorite sport to train them for?
Joseph, you're going to go first.
Joseph, favorite sport, any sport, you name like the perfect scenario, what would it be?
I played baseball for like 10 years, so I would choose baseball just because I'm most confident and comfortable in it. So I would train them to be a baseball. It doesn't matter what position. I think I've played every position besides catcher. So I would say, let's get really strong. Let's hit the ball really far. Let's run bases really well. Hand-eye coordination, balance, change of direction, all that good stuff. Agility drills. Let's get it.
I like it. Cody, what's yours?
Yeah, so for me, it's either going to be lacrosse. Love lacrosse. Fun sport. That's a fun one. Just all around for a lot of different reasons. But the other one would honestly be skiing. So skiing's my one true love. That's probably my favorite sport. And this goes for kids, but also adults. Man, getting strong before you go skiing can, especially with how freaking expensive skiing is, you're going to have far more enjoyment getting in shape for it for the dollar. So skiing.
I like that one a lot. That's cool.
Yeah, forgotten sport. There's so many good sports out there that we just forget about as adults, you know?
Well, gentlemen, that was fun.
Great.
We should do this more often.
Get it every time.
I know. Episode 8, you training. It was good to see you guys. We'll get this out soon to everyone. If you want to throw in the comment section, maybe something you'd like for us to chat about, we'll probably maybe go back to some more nutrition, personal training stuff next time and lean into something like that. But as always, we're up to some ideas. And yeah, gentlemen, good to see y'all. Hope to see you soon. Keep rocking and stay fit. You know what I'm saying? We'll see you guys. Bye.